Hi, and welcome to Super Anti-Aging Podcast with myself, Steve Halpern. You know, there's so many health scares that occur in the news. I mean, certainly we've lived through COVID, and we hear about the pesticides, and we hear about the maybe a possible danger from EMF, electromagnetic frequencies. But the real danger is the plastics. They're in everything. And they haven't really been super studied, and they can incorporate into the body. The list is endless of how you're exposed. Food containers, clothing, children's toys, toothpaste. Long list. I mean, it's almost impossible to avoid them right now. So until there's enough outcry to ban some of them, which I don't think is going to happen, there's so many different ones. And of course we have the chemical industry connection to politicians, so I don't really see this happening. So I did some searches to find out what might help protect us. And what came up was, interesting enough, probiotics. Those friends down there, those bugs down there that seem to do so many things, everything from the gut-brain connection to immune system to mood. The list goes on and on and on. So after reading the studies, I up my probiotics, different probiotics. The real game is diversity of probiotics. Yeah, there are tests now that can do probiotic testing, but we still don't know enough. We don't quite understand. I mean, the big change was when they could do the DNA analysis of probiotics and identify all the zillions of probiotics that are down there. And of course, probiotics put out chemicals that travel throughout the whole body. So that's they're not just locked into the gut. So let me go on. I think the idea is increase your fiber intake. I like things like ASEA fiber, ASEA fiber, inulin fiber. Of course, don't stand by chia seed, flax seed. I think those are all good starting places. I put those in my smoothie in the morning, and that really helps. Or at least I think it helps. It's going to help maybe detoxify some of these plastics, because by taking the fiber in, and I take many different probiotics. And I think, again, it's kind of important they be personalized. I think it's important that they're reputable companies. They're heat stable. They're going to be somewhat resistant to stomach acid. Very important. And be able to populate in your gut. So that's my major health hint. Increase those probiotics. Increase your fiber content. There are things that will, possibly destroy probiotics, and you have to really, counteract that. Certainly, doing antibiotics, which often are necessary, can have a negative effect on your gut. Now, here's an interesting one that I hadn't really thought about. PPIs. Those are those drugs you take, proton pump inhibitors, for stomach acid. One of the largest over-the-counter products right now, next to laxatives. And interesting that the two biggest over-the-counter products are laxatives and PPIs. Now, what do PPIs do? They reduce stomach acid. Not a good thing. In fact, there have been studies linking PPIs to increase risk of cancer, liver. This was a fascinating one. Okay. possibly liver damage. And the mechanism is because the high acid supports beneficial bugs, and low acid increases the preponderance of bad bugs. Now, there are lots of bugs in the stomach, and nature designed us to have acid. And I think that, controlling your diet and making sure you don't have pylori. 50% of the world population has pylori. That's that nasty bug that has been related possibly to cancers. But the interesting finding is, in some cases, this is where science and medicine get kind of fascinating, might actually be anti-cancer. But again, that's a medical issue to discuss with your physician, health practitioner, whether you do have pylori, whether you want to treat the pylori, whether you want to protect yourself from the negative effects of the pylori. That's important. Certainly, there's been, as I said, there's been connections to pylori and increased risk of esophageal cancers. So it's probably something you want to monitor. I mean, you can do it with a stool test and find out if you do have pylori, and then how you're going to treat it. Now, here's the good news, because I always like to give my listeners good news. What might help? Well, believe it or not, broccoli sprouts. And I like microgreen sprouts. And sulforaphane, broccoli seed, broccoli sprouts can help produce sulforaphane. Sulforaphane is produced from glucoraphanin with an enzyme called myrosinase. Now, unfortunately, most broccoli is not going to work. And so my suggestion is a good sulforaphane probiotic, legitimate product that's gone through clinical trials and it's been tested. Might be important. If you do that, you take on an empty stomach. If you take the broccoli sprouts or the microgreens or the broccoli pill on an empty stomach, there have been some really nice studies that it might have a killing effect on that nasty pylori. Simple thing to do. So we come to the end of this podcast. Please share this. By the way, I want to add one more thing. Okay. Obviously, if anyone's on Instagram or the web, they see the growth of the cosmetic industry now. That so many, influencers become zillion and millionaires with their makeup videos. The issue is lots and lots of these bad chemicals, lots and lots of these plastics in the cosmetics. There's been lead in lipstick. Imagine lead. Certain countries are a little bit more tight in regulation, but there is no cosmetic regulation. Unfortunately. Yes, it's not regulated. Put anything you want in it. Okay? That's and with no consequences. So a search on some sites, you can go on and put in plastic-free cosmetics, chemical-free cosmetics, and there's certainly some options. I would do the same thing with anything topically you're using, whether it's your shampoos or your soaps. You do not want these extra plastics. They're going to turn out to be the nightmare, the health nightmare, when enough of the real research comes out on this, and it's an issue that's going to be difficult to deal with. And so in the interim, you want to protect yourself. So I come to the end of this podcast. Please share this podcast or put some comments, or I have a website. Well, it's not a website yet. Okay. I have a Facebook group called Super Anti-Aging on Facebook. You can inquire and join that, and I'll post some of these things because I need a place to post some of these studies until I get my website up, which is going to happen soon. So I hope you learned something from this podcast, and please feel free to share it and subscribe.